subscribe, like, share, and don't forget to press the bell icon. James had been driving trucks for over a decade, carving his path through the endless ribbons of asphalt that stretched across the country like veins of steel. He knew the highways, the rest stops, the shadowy corners of towns that few people ever saw. But nothing in all his years on the road had prepared him for the night he picked up the mysterious freight from that decrepit warehouse on the outskirts of a town no one seemed to remember. It was the kind of place that time forgot, where the streetlights flickered dimly, and the silence wasn't just the absence of sound, but a heavy presence pressing on your chest. The air smelled stale, a mixture of rust, oil, and something else James couldn't place, something sour, like decay. When he pulled up in his rig, the dock worker who came to load the cargo looked like he belonged to the shadows themselves. His face was gaunt, almost skeletal, and his eyes glinted with something that James couldn't quite interpret. Was it warning, or a secret menace? The crate they strapped onto the trailer was heavy, wrapped tightly in tarps, and reinforced with iron chains, rusted from years of neglect. No labels, no paperwork besides a simple bill of lading with a cryptic symbol scrawled in red ink, something that looked like a twisted tree with claw-like branches reaching outward. "Just get it there by dawn," the dock worker muttered, voice low and gravelly, "and don't stop for nothing." James raised an eyebrow. "What's in it?" The man shrugged, a twitch of a smile playing on his lips, like he enjoyed the mystery. "You don't want to know, just drive." As he climbed back into his cab, James laughed nervously to himself. He'd heard all kinds of tall tales from truckers, cursed shipments, haunted roads, shadow people chasing rigs into the night, all stories to keep drivers awake during lonely shifts. But this felt different. There was a coldness in the air that bit through the truck's thick metal like icy fingers. He turned the key, the engine roared to life, and the headlights cut a bright path through the blackness. The highway stretched ahead, empty and silent. At first, the trip seemed normal. The road was clear, the night calm. But as the clock ticked past midnight, subtle things began to unnerve James. The temperature inside the cab dropped suddenly, frosting the edges of the windows. The radio, which had been silent since leaving the warehouse, burst into static, then faint whispers, indistinct but unmistakably, calling his name. James shook his head, convinced it was interference from the forest's dense canopy. Still, an uneasy knot tightened in his stomach. His GPS flickered, then blinked out, leaving only a blank screen. He reached over to the dashboard, tapping the unit, but it refused to respond. The truck's headlights suddenly caught movement in the tree line, shapes darting just beyond the glow, disappearing before he could focus. His heart thudded in his chest. He squinted into the darkness, gripping the wheel harder. The highway seemed to curve unnaturally, bending into stretches of road that weren't on any map. Then, in his rearview mirror, James saw it. Another truck, an old rig, battered and broken, with shattered headlights, and a trailer hanging loose. It moved at a slow, deliberate pace, always staying just behind him, no matter how fast he accelerated. Panic bubbled up in James's throat. He slammed on the brakes, then hit the gas, weaving through the narrow lanes. The phantom truck mirrored his every move, relentless, silent, unstoppable. He tried to radio for help, but the channel was dead air. His phone showed no signal. The whispers on the radio grew louder, overlapping voices chanting in a language he couldn't place, something primal and ancient that felt like a curse slipping into his soul. James's breath came in ragged gasps as the truck's engine faltered, sputtering like it was gasping for life. The trailer behind him creaked and groaned, chains rattling, as if whatever was inside was shifting, awakening. The road disappeared into a thick fog, swallowing headlights and blurring the world into a swirling haze of gray. James's fingers trembled as he gripped the wheel, eyes darting to the side mirrors. The phantom truck flickered in and out of existence, sometimes only visible in the corner of his eye, sometimes looming directly beside him, driverless, engine growling low and threatening. Memories flooded his mind, the stories he'd heard of truckers who vanished without a trace on this stretch of highway, the whispered rumors of cursed cargo that dragged souls into the darkness. James tried to shake it off as exhaustion, but the feeling of dread was suffocating. The radio crackled again, and this time the voice was clear. "Turn back. You're not meant to carry this load." James slammed his fist on the dashboard, anger fighting fear. "Who is this? Show yourself," he yelled into the static, but the only response was the howl of the wind and the groan of the chains behind him. The phantom truck edged closer, and in its cracked windshield, James saw the driver's eyes, empty sockets burning with fiery hatred. A chill ran down his spine. The rig wasn't just a vehicle, it was a vessel for something far worse than he could imagine, and now he was trapped in its deadly game. "Let me know if you want me to continue with paragraphs 2 and 3 at this length and tone. I'll write those next with the same creepy vibe and detailed narrative." The night seemed to close in tighter around James, as if the forest itself were pressing against the cab of his truck. The fog thickened, swallowing the headlights and turning the highway into a twisting river of mist and shadows. Every turn felt like a trap, a snare woven by unseen hands to draw him deeper into the nightmare that had become his reality. His heart pounded like a drum in his chest, his breath fogging the windows as he gripped the steering wheel with trembling hands. The whispers on the radio morphed from unintelligible murmurs into a low, relentless chant, the words vibrating through the air and settling deep into his bones. "You cannot escape. You cannot escape." The phantom truck was relentless. It stalked him like a predator, its broken headlights flickering like the eyes of a demon lurking just out of reach. James pushed his rig faster, the engine screaming as he pressed the accelerator to the floor, but no matter what speed he gained, the old rig stayed glued to his tail. He glanced over his shoulder, the apparition's cracked windshield revealing the ghostly figure behind the wheel, a gaunt man with skin as pale as death and eyes burning with an unnatural fire. The driver's mouth moved in silent fury, lips twisting into a sinister grin that sent a cold shiver down James's spine. Suddenly, the road ahead vanished, swallowed by a dense wall of trees that bent and twisted as if they were alive. James's tires skidded on wet leaves, the truck fishtailing dangerously as he fought for control. The ghost truck roared past him like a shadow unleashed, disappearing into the fog, but leaving behind a trail of icy cold that seemed to freeze the very air. James's chest tightened with panic. His only hope was to outrun the curse, but the highway had turned into a labyrinth, where every road led deeper into darkness. The cargo behind him thumped and rattled violently. Chains groaned and snapped like bones breaking, echoing through the cab with an otherworldly sound. James glanced back at the trailer, and through the shattered gaps in the tarp, he could swear he saw movement, limbs twisting and writhing in the shadows, clawed hands scraping against the metal walls. The air grew thick with the stench of rot and sulfur, and his stomach churned with the sickening realization that whatever was inside was alive, awakening, hungry for release. His mind reeled with thoughts of the dock workers' warning, the cryptic symbol, the cursed shipment. He remembered the stories whispered by truckers who vanished on this highway, lost souls dragged into eternal torment by the midnighthauler. The weight of fate pressed down on him like a crushing wave. He was no longer a driver, he was prey, caught in a nightmare from which there was no escape. The radio crackled violently, and the voice returned, a rasping, guttural sound that seemed to crawl out of the darkness itself. "Turn off the road, find the crossroads, or be consumed." James's hands shook as he twisted the wheel, searching desperately for any sign of civilization, any light to guide him out of the forest's grasp. The fog parted briefly to reveal a narrow path veering off the highway, flanked by ancient trees gnarled like the fingers of the dead. He hesitated, then swerved onto the dirt road, tires crunching on gravel and fallen branches. The phantom truck followed, its headlights slicing through the gloom, relentless and merciless. The air grew colder with every mile, the darkness closing in like a shroud. James's breath came in ragged gasps as he pushed deeper into the unknown, the trailer behind him groaning and thrashing as if the thing inside was trying to break free. The radio burst into static, then silence. The oppressive quiet pressed against his ears, broken only by the relentless thump of the cargo bay and the pounding of his heart. Suddenly, the truck jolted violently, as if something invisible had slammed into it from behind. James slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching as the rig fishtailed. He spun the wheel hard, bringing the truck to a shaky stop in a small clearing, bathed in pale moonlight. The phantom truck was nowhere to be seen. For a brief moment, relief washed over James, but it was quickly replaced by a creeping dread. The cargo bay door rattled violently, chains snapping like twigs. James's eyes widened in horror as the back doors burst open, revealing not boxes or crates, but a swirling void of darkness that seemed to suck in the light itself. From the abyss poured tendrils of shadow, writhing and twisting like serpents made of smoke and fear.